Hello, just like you, I have just passed out of 12th and now I'm looking at all my career options. So let's know a little bit about architecture. With us is architect Aniruddha Kolatkar. He will tell us about what architecture field is and he'll answer few of my questions. So, what is architecture according to you?
Well, architecture is really like you can define it like your lifestyle. Architecture is civilization. So you talk about any civilization, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, what comes to your mind?
Yes, their architecture defines, they have a specific
Buildings.
style.
Buildings, that's it. So, really speaking, architecture is nothing but buildings, and buildings mean that they define your lifestyle because you use buildings every day. All
Maybe we
types
can
of
say that they
buildings.
define society as well.
Yes, definitely. Society is it's a very important part of society. Architecture is one of the most important part of society.
So, what does an architect do?
Basically, architects design buildings, buildings of all sorts. So it could be right from a small residence to airport maybe. So the scope of architecture is very vast. Now in architecture you will see that it is not only the building but the environment which we design. Like I said earlier, it's the lifestyle. So when you talk about the building, you also talk about the interior of the building. You talk about color combinations. You even talk about the exterior of a building, like a garden, a landscaping. Then sometimes you will be also involved in designing entire townships or cities. Like you must have heard about smart city concept and all that. So architects are going to be involved in that also. So architecture really encompasses a very vast field. And like we discussed earlier, it is very important part of our day-to-day life.
And what sort of clients do you build and design buildings for?
The basically, as I told you, that architecture involves so many fields. Like we cover so many types of buildings that our clients would be varied clients. Like for example, you could have a client as a doctor. It could be somebody who is a government agency for whom we are designing, or tomorrow we might be designing for a small residence for common man. Sometimes we might be even doing some work for the poor or displaced and so on. So really speaking, it's a really we deal with all sorts of people in life. We could be designing for a movie star for that matter.
So you can design right up from mansions to makeshift tents.
Yes, surely. So that's why it makes the field much more interesting and more challenging because you'll see that even designing for, as you said, like a mansion or for a small hut, there are so much variation is there in this design is that it is quite a challenging field.
And do you have to travel in this field?
Yes, definitely we have to travel a lot because sometimes our projects will be outside our city. Within the city also we have to visit the sites, we have to go to government offices, we have to supervise the work, and therefore part of our work will involve travel and part of our work will involve office work. And then the next part would be socializing, meeting people and so on.
And now, and very important question: do all your projects get built? How many of them leave the drawing board and make it into the actual place?
Well, most of the projects are built, but there would be some projects which would remain in a conceptual stage. So there is no such fixed percentage as such, but I can say that there will be a few projects which we keep aside for some reason or the other, and they remain in latent state.
How does an architect get work?
Well, that's a good question because initially, when you're going to start your work, like for example, if you decide to go to architecture and become an architect, initially maybe you will be getting work from your relatives, your friends, and so on. And then as you go on building more structures, as you show your prowess, then people will come to know you, not as a person, but from the buildings that you have designed. And then people will come to you for after looking at those buildings. So that will be a referral work.
And this will be as a private practitioner.
Yes, mostly as a private practitioner. If you are working with somebody also, you will be still recognized, but in a private practice, you will be getting all the credit.
How many hours do you have to work in a day?
Well, really speaking, there is no such fixed timing. Like this is not a 9 to 5 office, remember. An architect's office is going to be a 24/7 office. Some days we might be relaxed, some days we might have to work even during night times and complete a
So it
project.
depends all on the load of the work.
Yes, depends upon the load of the work, what type of project we are working on, and so on. So, really speaking, these are flexible timings which we have.
And do you have to deal with any consultants while handling a project?
Yes, definitely. You see, architecture is nothing but teamwork, and you will see that though we claim that we design a building, remember that there are so many people in the background who are working along with us, who are making that building successful. So there could be various consultants like there could be electrical consultants, air conditioning consultants, then there could be fire consultants, structural engineers, and so on. So it's a big team of people who we work with.
And what has inspired or who has inspired you to become an architect?
Well, actually, I was from my very childhood. I was really interested in this field, and I used to, like architecture. I used to read about it, and especially I was inspired by people like Frank Lloyd Wright and Doshi and so many other people. So, really speaking, those were my inspirations.
And maybe reading about architecture and going through maybe a few magazines might actually give you an insight into
Yes,
what the
definitely.
field
I would
is.
advise you to really read something about architecture. Nowadays, you will see that you have got so many resources available on the internet. So you should go and search different sites where they are showing buildings, where they appreciate the buildings. They give a commentary on that, and I think that would definitely help you to gain more insight into the field of architecture.
Okay, thank you, sir. Your answers have been very helpful to me,
You're welcome.
and they will help me decide which field I choose for my future.
Okay, all the best to you, Anish.
Thank you.
Thank you.